to the Bayview Podcast with hosts Andrew Clark and Chris Emery. This is designed to be a discussion on all things life and faith. We hope this serves as a weekly resource and encouragement to you.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Bayview Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Andrew Clark, joined as always by Mr. Chris Emery. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, man. Good to be here again.
Yeah.
So every week right here.
Back at it.
Yeah.
Back at it.
It's super good, man. We're getting towards the end of summer. Kind of hard to believe how fast it goes, but I know we say that every single year.
Mm-hmm.
It just flies by. But
Yeah.
you feel like you've crammed enough summer stuff in, like to feel like you made the most of it?
I feel like every summer ends and we're like, oh, we should have gone to the beach more or done this more or that more, but it's been a good summer. It's been full.
Yeah, good.
So I'll take it.
Yeah.
I was thinking today how the conversation always shifts like, oh, I'm ready for fall. And then all of a sudden, like, I feel like no one says, oh, I'm ready for winter. But then by the end of winter, people are like, I'm ready for summer. You know what I mean? Like, it's always like that seems to be the conversation. I'm having a lot more, I'm ready for fall conversations.
I think I talked recently to a lunatic that said they're ready for winter, but I can't remember exactly who it was. There's a few of them out there. There's a few of them out there. So it was with Brock. It's my son who said he's ready for winter.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Well, lunatic is accurate. That's super
fair.
Accurate. So
That's fair.
Hey, we are we're a couple weeks into kind of a new season here at Bayview. Every fall in September, particularly, we really focus on that. It's kind of like what we call our mission month, not missions like just missions, but mission month. Really focusing and digging in on the mission of the church, which is really most simplified as the Great Commission. That we are here to take this gospel of the good news to a world around us that is hurting, they're lost, they're hopeless. Everything that Jesus saw before he put out the call for laborers. And kind of the tagline that you've heard us use here is that we're called to go across the street and across the world.
Yeah.
And we, so we're just focusing on that right now. That's just a really important thing. And obviously it's what we're supposed to do all year long. It's not just 1 month, but this is our focus on it. And along those lines, we really have been wanting to have guests on. And so we're excited today. We've got a return guest. I'm going to let you introduce him and kind of set it up. Yeah,
I mean, with the idea of kind of it's to go tell your story, and the idea that everyone does have a story, and there's that. I think in some cases there's this like reality of I have to have a really important story or really epic story to make a difference for Jesus, and like that's just not the case. But yeah, this idea of hearing people's stories and how they've gone and how the gospel's either changed their life or how they're seeing it change others. And so, yeah, our guest today is my father-in-law, Mr. Tom Galbicsek, and back with us. And he's been on before, shared kind of his epic life journey and bits and pieces and things like that. And but Tom, I'm glad you're back on and wanting to be with us. And I think you have plenty of experiences the last couple of years, it sounds like, of either meeting people or knowing people or getting experience. Because if you haven't listened before, you're from North Carolina, but you work in Abu Dhabi, like anywhere from 3 to 6 months out of the year, involved in a church over there and just some of that stuff. And so you kind of have this, where a lot of us are probably only ever going to really experience going across the street. Like you really have got to see, not even in a missionary context, right? Like someone sent you to Abu Dhabi as a missionary, but you've got to go across the world and see really how the gospel transforms lives, changes lives. And so welcome back. Glad you're here.
Yeah, it's good to be back. And thanks for short notice having me.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to this,
Good.
doing this again. So I did make a small agenda this time because last time I think I was all over the place. But
not at all. No, not at all.
But first of all, I want to share a couple of amazing stories from last time I was on. A couple of my mentors, one being Pedro from Angola. I mentioned his story. Lived basically his whole life in Civil War.
Yeah.
He got his bachelor's in theology and master's in church planting.
Wow.
It was amazing. And I went to the
So cool.
graduation, and then he went to Angola to look at where he's going to set up his church,
Wow.
which is another amazing thing. I can't wait to go.
Yeah.
It's just, and they showed us a video. If I can get a copy, I'll send it to you so you can take a look. It's pretty amazing. So that was one, and then the other one was Hytham. I've known since 6 years over there, and he's the one that converted from being a Muslim, Jordanian, to a Christian.
Yeah.
And we went to his wedding in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
and got married in a church to a Christian woman who's on a mission in Al Ain, which is just outside of Abu Dhabi, and she works in a hospital there. Now they both work there, but unbelievable that a person like that, and we've prayed for that moment for years, and to see it happen was very cool. And his faith and her faith, it's just a lot of really positive things happened recently. Wow. It was really good.
That is super cool.
And they broadcast it in Jordan.
Yeah.
From a church, which, pretty amazing.
Yeah.
He shared with me, I have to say this, he shared with me a video around Christmas time of the mayor, I guess it kind of like the mayor of one of the provinces over there, and a bunch of kids singing Christmas carols. Christian,
No way.
the Lord.
No way.
Yes. I don't know if they knew what they were singing or what, but
yeah,
it's just, so those are some great things happening.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, so that was really cool. But I do have kind of an agenda, but let's see. I had a lot of great feedback from the last podcast, which was great, and a lot of your listeners, and I shared it with our New Life Church overseas, and a lot of positive feedback.
Cool.
Awesome.
My pastor over there, Gareth, didn't realize I could talk for an hour. He said, the man of the few words. He's probably heard 20 words in 6 years from me. And
Put
so
him
he
in
was
front,
pretty
put a mic in front of him. Give him a mic and look out.
Watch him go.
But yeah, a lot of positive feedback, a lot of people asking questions, which is good.
Good.
Yeah, so that's what you try to do, right? Is get some people interested and maybe change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and just to put yourself in position to have conversations and dialogue about life and faith. I was asking about your friend that just got married, and how did he find Jesus? And you're like, through a relationship, another guy, just hanging out and talking and sharing. And so much of what we talk about is like, hey, listen, quit waiting for people to come to church and find Jesus. I mean, we'd love that when that happens, but it's relationships. It's all of us being willing to go and engage. And so that's why I love so much about your stories.
So this time, I wanted to discuss men specifically, addressing some issues they may have, and what gets in the way that I've seen and I've experienced myself, what gets in the way of changing that? Pride, ego, selfishness, a lot of fear is another big weakness in my line of work. Former Green Beret Ranger, if you do something like this, you consider it a weakness because of the way you were brought up to never have any weaknesses, and it's ingrained in you for years. It's be hyper vigilant, always aware. Manipulate others to do things for you. So to cross over that is a big thing for these guys, because they have those huge egos, and that's the guys who you want on your left and right. But the thing that sticks out the most, and we talk about this in our Celebrate Recovery, is denial. You're in denial of something that might be hindering your relationship with your wife, with your friends, your work, anything. So, I mean, it could be porn, it could be gaming, it could be phone. You know, people are addicted to that. What's your hurt habit and hang up? Your addiction. Alcohol, drugs is a normal one. You know, sin of the flesh, looking at women and sexualizing. Just so many things that people have these addictions, hurts, habits, and hang-ups, and don't want to admit it. So the questions that you get yourself, and this was what I asked, I don't have a problem. Okay, this is denial. I don't have a problem. It's other people's problem. I can quit anytime I want, right? So a litmus test for that would be quit for 30 days.
Yeah.
And see what happens, you know? And don't white knuckle it, actually quit.
Yeah.
And after 30 days, see if you can do another 30 days. And that's difficult, right? Because we like our addictions. It kind of resonates to who we are.
Sure.
When I was going through it, alcohol. So I had a lot of counseling on PTSD, anxiety, anger, depression. And it was amazing. I did this eye manipulation, and I felt great. I felt so good that at the end of my session, I would drive around a corner to a liquor store and get drunk all the way home.
Wow.
Because I never addressed my alcoholism.
Yeah.
It was my one secret that I wanted to
Yeah.
really hold on to. The other stuff was out there. I didn't care. But that was the one. I never even discussed it in all those years. And
Yeah.
it was amazing. And, you know, you have to hit rock bottom in order to get better.
And I think that's one question I have for you is in your story and even in the things, the men you've worked with, what does it take for someone to make that turn? Because as we've all experienced, you can't want it for somebody else. You can't want somebody else to quit. You can't want them to get free. They've got to reach a point, whether it's rock bottom or whatever level, to finally say, okay, I want this. Because without that, they're not going to admit it. Like you said, they're going to continue to make the lies to themselves. You know, I've got this. I can quit. It's not that big a deal. It's not hurting anybody. You know, all those lies.
Yeah.
So what have you seen that helps guys finally hit that moment of like, okay, let's be real?
Wow, that's very complex because it's different for every person.
Sure.
Maybe their marriage is completely debunked. They don't have a relationship with their wife. And I'm just speaking mostly for men because that's who I work with.
Yeah.
Their children don't talk to them. Their family doesn't talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
They isolate, and they think, because addiction is such a selfish thing, you know, because I got this, it's everybody else's problem, that denial. For me, I had to, you know, I kept putting it off. I knew in January of 17, I had a problem. And I just kept making excuses. Like, you know, next month this is going on. Oh, it's somebody's birthday. I'll just stop drinking after that. Oh, it's Cinco de Mayo. I'll start drinking. You know, some 4th of July, you know, and then the 5th of
Flag
July.
Day.
Any day, come on, you know? Yeah. And any reason to continue. And then 4th of July 2017 was the rock bottom, and I finally got help the next day. And 7 years. So I feel great about that. That's one of the key things. You got to hit rock bottom for yourself.
Yeah. Do you think the tension point is, you know, at least in your story, like people might have noticed your alcoholism or wanted it to not be a part of your life, but for you personally, it was like, well, it's not truly affecting someone else.
Oh,
So
yeah.
in some ways, it's like, I think almost with our addictions, it's like you use the term like, I got this. It's like, yeah, I got this because it's not, air quotes, not really affecting other people. It's just
Exactly.
kind of but that's where I think that's where it's an
That's
addiction. Where
that
you don't,
selfishness. Yeah.
you don't understand that your porn addiction is slowly decreasing your desire for your wife. You don't realize that you know what I mean? Your alcoholism is slowly changing the way you interact with your children. Like it's slowly like, it's like, it is deteriorating you from the inside out in a lot of ways. But again, I just wonder for a lot of people, it's like, to your point, it's a personal, like it's really only messing with me and I can handle it. So, and we don't realize the greater effects that it's having.
Yeah, exactly. Food addiction is another thing. People overeat, and they deny it. I can quit or have quit. And here's another thing too. People, they relapse in everything and they figure they're a failure. Yeah. And that's part of their journey, is that may be it. And it may be several times, and you have to start over, and you have to pick yourself back up and start over. But I don't know if I said this last time, but I quit drinking 3 or 4 times on my own for years. One time I think it was, I want to say it was 5 years, but maybe it was 3, but white knuckling it the whole time, knowing I was going to drink again. And then as soon as you pick up, you pick up right where you left off, and then some. It's not like you start, I'm going to have 1 beer or 1 drink. It's full on everything. And I used to hide booze everywhere. I mean, it was like it was crazy. And
well, that's normally the tragedy with overdoses, is it's normally the addict who quits, white knuckles it, and then when they come back, they never come back at a small, they come back right where they left off. And
I think that's with everything too.
You see a lot of the kind of greater fall off that happens after a relapse, because of normally it's, we don't start back at baby steps with our addiction. We're right at the head of it again.
But you think you can do that.
Yeah.
You think you can just have a beer, social drink. There's no such thing.
No. That's interesting too. Like, so I'm thinking like, all right, so anybody maybe even listening now, like you're actually throwing out some really good, self checkpoint things of like, all right, hey, are you and your spouse, or is there a distance that's been created? You mentioned, have your kids stopped talking to you, or you've lost that intimacy with your family. But even more so, like if you're hiding, like if you're having to hide booze, or you're hiding your search history, or if you keep your phone in your pocket so your wife never gets it, or any of those moments, that's the isolation of sin, right? That's
isolation.
To keep it secret.
Yep.
And that's what Satan wants, and that's where the lies continue to perpetuate of like, it's not that big a deal, it's fine. But man, if you're doing those things, there's a problem. Yeah. And I think that's a big awareness moment that so many people are just avoiding.
Yes, and so moving forward from that, how do you get help? First of all, you have to admit it, that you have a problem, and you can't do it alone. Like I said, I've tried, and it doesn't work. And we talk about that a lot in our recovery group, that you need to get in a program. You need to have an accountability partner where you can share these things and you're not judged, or, there's no, repercussions from that, or they're not going to tell somebody. And it should be the same sex person, not, never, never opposite. That would just make things worse. You've got to remove yourself from things that trigger you, like that site on the computer. It's too easy, right? You have to take yourself away from the booze or the drugs, and you have to, this is a tough one too, you have to find new friends, because if you start hanging out with your old friends, the chances are you're probably going to go back to your old habits. Yeah. And so it's a whole new life,
But how about the quick response that I'm sure we've all heard, but I want to help them, but I want to show them, right? It's kind of like when I talk with high school students, the joke of like missionary dating, like, well, I can date a non-Christian, I will help them find Jesus. And it's like that same scenario. Will there come a time, maybe way down the road, where you can be in that environment and be a help, where your strength is built up? Maybe down the road. Like I'm sure you can be in situations now that you could never be in 7 years ago because you've built up a strength and an ability to handle it. But you probably still know areas where you know better than to go.
Well, and that was my next point. Perfect segue, by the way.
Nailed it.
That you have to get into a program.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get into a 12-step program. That's the only way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think you're going to do it on your own, good luck.
Mm-hmm.
Because people can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to admit to God, to another person, and to yourself that you have a problem.
Yeah.
And then you move from there. And then the great thing about a 12-step program is when you finish, guess what the next step is? You help others.
Mm-hmm.
You
So
know,
good.
and then you start ministering to others and do podcasts
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah.
I have a few friends that I worked with for 20 years, and they heard that I was one of the leaders in this recovery group, and now they're there. And we have a history going back of all these crazy things that we've done in the past, and then to see all of us sitting there is just, man,
That's pretty cool.
it's amazing. It really is, because from where we were to where we are is just, and to see the growth on our guys in the recovery group. They don't give themselves enough credit. I try to. You got to celebrate these little victories. I didn't drink for a month, or I didn't smoke for a year and a half, or I didn't look at internet porn for 30 days.
Yeah.
That's a celebration, and I don't think we do that enough, because everyone wants to go for in the 12-step program in the big book, it says for one of these guys who's in the hospital, he's on his last leg, and all of a sudden a light flashes and he's saved. And everybody's looking for that light flash. When am I going to have it? When am I going to have a miracle? And don't realize that the miracles are happening right in front of them, to them, because they have 30 days. And if you've been drinking your whole life, 50 years, and you're sober for 30 days, that's
huge.
That's one of those light moments that we take for granted. Yeah.
So
or
true.
if you've been in some kind of an addiction for years, and then all of a sudden you stop. So
really cool.
you have to, man, you have to go through a program, whether it's a Christian program, some kind of step program. You have to do it, and you have to do it with somebody. You have to have a sponsor, and like I said, you just can't do it on your own. And the first part is admitting you have a problem.
Well, let's go down that path a little bit then too, because I think that there are certainly more than enough individuals that are there's a grip on them. There's a grip of addiction of some sort on them, and they are in that place of denial, of pride. I got this, whatever the lies are. But I think there's a whole nother group of people. They see it, they know it's a problem, and they're scared to death. They're scared to death to come out and tell anybody. I can't tell my wife. I can't tell my pastor. I can't tell my parents. I can't. And obviously, there's so much shame that comes with that. There's embarrassment. How would you encourage someone that is maybe in that season where they want out? They want out. They just don't. They're just scared to death to say anything.
Yeah, and that's a good question. It's very tough to answer because everyone has their tipping point. I was going through recovery, an outpatient program, and I drove by AA like 3 times. I'm like, I'm not going in there. There's a bunch of alcoholics in there. Why would I go in there? And then finally one of the ladies from my group offered to bring me in there, and that's how it started. So I didn't do it by myself. Again, I couldn't do it by myself because I was fearful. There's a lot of shame. And again, it's a weakness that I have to be vulnerable, and that's very, very tough for men to do that.
So difficult.
And then once you get in there, you realize, man, I'm among people that have the same problem as me, and I think it's scary.
Yeah.
First time you do that, first time you admit, when you sit there and say, my name's Tom, I'm an alcoholic. And it's like, oh, I just said that. And it's just crazy. And the more times you say it, even for the first 30 days, I was going twice a week. Every time I said it was like, I didn't believe it, and it's what it takes.
Wow.
Get a sponsor, go through the steps. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, no, it does, because I'm just thinking through the filter of who may be listening. That's like, because there's also something safe about listening to a podcast, because you're probably listening alone. So you're a little more vulnerable, a little more willing to maybe, be honest with yourself. And so my guess is there's probably somebody or multiple somebodies that are listening. They've been wanting help for a long time, but they're scared to death to say anything. So
especially men, they think everything that they do is a weakness,
100%.
or it's going to be, or they're afraid.
100%.
Because when I was going through the 12-step program, there was a 8x11 sheet of paper, and it had 2 columns, and it was all fear. Fear of being found out, fear of the unknown, everything that you're fearful of. And then one of the things that we did was we can ball up that piece of paper and physically, that physical, throw it away. Yeah. And that's part of the healing. Yeah. And I encourage guys, I understand.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for guys to admit it. And I know guys from my past history that will never go to counseling. I know guys that say to me, I'm going to take that to the grave. And I'm like, I can't help you, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If you're going to, if that's the thing that you're going to clutch on to, or you're hang on to for the rest of your life, you're going to be in denial. You're not going to ever move forward, no matter how bad it is. It's happened in the Bible.
Yeah.
All of that stuff.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how it was for you. You can let us know that maybe, but I would have to imagine for a lot of men particularly, but anybody, we think we're hiding these things so well. We think we're keeping them under wraps and that nobody knows. And therefore we're super embarrassed or ashamed to ever come out and confess and admit it. But the reality is, I would imagine most of the time, the people closest to you, they know something's up.
Oh, yeah.
They know.
I mean, you're not hiding anything.
You're not really that clever as you think. Did you find that the case as you begin to kind of talk with the people close to you? Were they aware? Were they like, you know what, Tom, we've seen something in you. We've been praying. We've been hoping this would come out.
Well, yeah, when people start distancing themselves, loved ones start distancing themselves from you, and you clutching on to that addiction because it's yours, it's your identity, and I'm not letting this go. That's their problem.
Right.
And that's the selfishness of it. It's very selfish. All these addictions and things it's a selfish thing. It's something that you want to hold on to, your identity, whatever it is. That's one of a good sign. Maybe you got a DUI. Maybe you're in jail. That might be a good sign.
Yeah.
And I think I told you that I had one of those signs, when that rocket hit about Jesus. And I thought, wow, this is the perfect time to, and I didn't do anything. It took me another 10 years,
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even that.
Yeah.
We see it. We know it needs to happen, but we deny it. We don't want to do it. And
Yeah, that's crazy.
I have guys that, the guys that were blown up and shot and have all this trauma and just want to have that as their identity for some reason, and maybe it's perpetuated by others that prolong that. In other words, here's so and so, he got blown up here, and that's their identity, or he's been shot, or he had some traumatic experience and doesn't want to get help, which is a shame, or like it could be anything. It could be a car accident.
Yeah.
It could be, firefighter, policeman, whatever. They see traumatic events and they think I'm a guy, I can deal with this. I don't need this counseling. I don't need to talk to anyone. That's a weakness. I can do it on my own. And that's a guy's problem.
Yeah.
It really is, you know.
Yeah.
For anyone out there, I went twice a week to counseling for years.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but again, I never admitted that I had an alcohol problem. That was my secret, you know,
Yeah.
for years.
Well, and I think the whole topic of identity is so it's even hyper focused now in our current society. Everybody's identifying, everybody's looking for something to identify as or with, and so I identify as this or with this. And for most men, we want to be seen different than how we feel. There's a now passed away author, Brennan Manning, wrote some amazing books. In his one book, Abba's Child, he talks a lot because he himself was an alcoholic. So he struggled with alcoholism his entire life. Would go through long stretches of sobriety, would maybe have, fall off the wagon, but just an amazing Christian author and speaker. And he talked a lot about this imposter. And so inside of all of us men, there's this imposter, and they're the ones that want to come out. And that's who lives out front. That's who we think everybody sees, and it's the false us.
Yeah. And
we're hiding behind with all of our wounds, with all of our sin, with all of our insecurities, all of our shame. And he just talks so much about how we've got to put that imposter to death in order for us to step in and find healing, go through the consequences of our actions. Because men, I'm sorry, forgiveness is quick, but consequences are still there. Like there's no pass on that. You got to walk the road, and sometimes you've done damage. Sometimes that's a long road of recovery. But on the other side is this freedom where now you begin to live out your true identity as a son of God or a daughter of God, and living in, and that's the only place of freedom is to be in that identity.
Yeah.
And so you can identify as whatever you want, but there's only one identity that is eternal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nothing this world. I mean, I think so when Jesus talks about it, he says they won't even recognize you because they don't know me. And I think that's an identity statement. Yeah. Right. Like they're not going to know your identity because they don't know my identity. Yeah. But that's the only one that matters. And the path through that is difficult for some.
Very
without
difficult.
a doubt.
Yeah. We a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we discussed that in our group that you've gotten through your addiction or you're moving forward. What's the next step? And they want more. So now they're seeking out a Christian side of it as well to help out. And how important that is, because AA and all these groups give you so much, but there's more that I need to get. I need salvation. I need freedom. Yeah. And I will tell you that, and this is what I say all the time. We used to go to this. Everyone goes to this training where you're simulated as a POW. Okay. You're put in these little boxes, and it's crazy. Sprayed down, minimal things to eat, and you're treated like you might be as a prisoner of war. Yeah. And sometimes I tell these guys, I would rather go through that again than taking that leap forward and to be a Christian, because it's hard.
Wow.
I would rather go through all that training again that we had to get where we were, because it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's not easy. That leap of faith is a step, or maybe you fall into it. It's very difficult if you're very established in your addiction or denial. Yeah, it's a very tough thing to do, and I think it's anyone's background, because I did this, I did that, the pride, and it's that's the way it is. Yeah.
It's a big trust factor, and I think it probably starts with trusting yourself, and then trust, because you talk about the imposter thing. I just think of so many times I've talked to students specifically who wants to date someone and they have given off a certain persona or a certain, like, this is who I am, and I kind of warn them, like, you understand when you step into that relationship, if this person has only ever known this other you, are you going to be comfortable just living your life as that other person? Because what's going to happen when they actually meet the real you, and then what you find out is there's almost like this trust factor of, like, trusting others that the real me is important and valuable. But I think of when you talk about your addictions or getting help, it's almost like, do I trust that not only these people around me are actually going to support and this is going to work, but do I just trust myself enough to, like, that this step is even worth it?
Oh yeah. And trust me, I think that people, when they see me and they say, "You're doing this?" You, of all people.
Sure.
I remember you. And the crazy things that we did and the mess, and they don't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I understand. Sometimes I don't, but the freedom that comes with it, you said, is it's worth it. It's definitely worth it to go through those tough things that you have to go through. And that, man, it's so easy to put on that facade, that identity. It's so easy to do that. And I don't know, I'm sure it's for everybody, especially for us, because we have to have that at all times,
Yeah.
And to give that up is a major thing. It's very difficult. I understand. People struggle. And that's what we're talking about, the struggle of that hurt, habit, hang up, addiction. It's a daily struggle, and you're subconsciously thinking about it all the time until you get help. Yeah. Because what's the next thing you want to do? I want to isolate myself.
Yeah.
I want to get on the internet. I want to isolate myself. I want to drink. I want to isolate myself because I want to do some drugs. And I don't want anyone around because this is my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because you can keep it secret.
Absolutely.
Hide it.
Denial. Isolate. Yeah.
I mean, we go back, and if you look in the book of Genesis at the very first murder with Cain and Abel, here we are. I mean, there's not that many people on the earth, right? Like, it's pretty new. And instinctively, Cain knows to hide it, right? He knows to cover it up, like, instinctively. He's going to cover up my sin. And so that's what sin does. And, what you were saying, Andrew, about how, people think they know this person, but behind is the real person. What that means is that if you're living in this place of a lie, if you're letting addiction be in control and trying to live this imposter life, you think people know you and you think you know them, but you're missing out on one important aspect of any relationship, and that is intimacy. You can't have intimacy in your marriage. You can't have intimacy in your family, and you can't have intimacy with Jesus Christ if sin is living out front. That's the block.
Yeah.
And I think that, there might be some fear of who's behind, but I think those of us, Tom, you could give testimony. I'm sure there's a lot of people you work with that could, like, hey, do the hard work, come clean, admit it, do the hard work, go through the suffering of it, because on the other side is something beautiful. There's something so powerful that you didn't even know you were missing all this time.
Great point. And one thing that I always tell guys in their recovery, everyone wants to snap their finger and be saved and be, out of their addiction. Okay. It's not how it works. And I always tell them, whoever I'm working with, you have to be very, very selfish in your recovery, meaning you can't fix your addiction or habit or whatever, your marriage, your relationships, and work. You can't fix everything at once. It does not work. You have to fix yourself.
Yeah.
And then you have to work outwards.
Well, did your selfishness not get you there to begin with?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like the trail back is probably really similar to walk it back through.
Oh, no, I can do it all at once.
Yeah.
I can juggle 10 things. Come on.
Yeah.
You really,
Yep.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
Because they're all going to fail because you're not going to put enough time and emphasis on one thing and really take care of it.
Yeah.
You're going to all these things are just not going to work.
Yeah.
And you're going to find yourself in a struggle.
Yeah. I just keep thinking of like the whole, denying yourself or dying to yourself daily. And
Absolutely.
like when you step into faith with Jesus, like that's the idea of like kind of bearing your cross. But first it really is like, it is no longer you who lives, right? And that idea of like dying to yourself means I'm going to put away the shame and put away a lot of the stuff. And I the word that keeps coming to mind though is shame. And I think for men, if we're really honest, like failure or not being good enough or fill in the blank fear, whatever it is, it really is a shame issue.
Absolutely.
And we're taught that, and it's true, shame sucks, but we're like taught that like shame's a bad thing. And to be shameful is to be full of weakness. And there's something so freeing when you can kind of put that aside. But that's going to take the honesty with self, the denial of self, the realization of the need for help or to figure this out, to seek forgiveness, whatever it might be. But I think kind of owning like it's a shame thing. I think
definitely.
that's a massive, massive factor.
Yeah. But it's so rewarding. And I'm talking about after recovery when you're helping others, like in our group. It's amazing to see where these men have grown and changed. Unbelievable change because they admitted they had a problem and they wanted to get help for it. And it's very difficult for men to be vulnerable and when they hear others sharing their testimonies or issues, then they start to, oh yeah, I had that too. I had this too.
Wow.
And you're never going to do it by yourself. It won't happen. You could talk to yourself for, forever and it's not going to happen. You could read the Bible and think I'll be saved that way, but good luck,
Well, and if you're also thinking, well, in some weird way, like everyone else has it figured out, I'm almost the only one going through this.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how many people think that?
Or mine is worse than everybody else's.
Yeah, let me assure you that, man, you're not alone either. Like you're not alone in this struggle. I'm sure anytime, I talk about some of my past, some of the things that God has brought me through, anytime I'm just raw and open about that, it's amazing how many people come out of the woodwork like, oh my gosh, like you too, like can we talk? And there's this openness then that comes out of that when you realize like there's others out there that there's others like Tom. There are guys like Tom in our church. There's guys like Tom if you're listening from wherever you are. But you need to start with that baseline first step, and that is get honest with yourself.
Yes. And I'll share a story. Amazing. We had the pastor of our church in Pinehurst come in and give his testimony in front of us. And his addiction was porn. And the vulnerability he showed was unbelievable, and the honesty about his addiction, and the fact that he told everybody in the congregation at every service.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's so powerful that a man can do that, just admit to everybody.
Yeah.
That's got to be so freeing. I mean, think about that. You're the head pastor of a church and you're going to tell everybody, there it is. It's out there.
Yeah.
And then people come, hey, me too. I had the same thing. Yeah, I struggle. And it's there. That's what I'm talking about, being vulnerable at a huge level.
And that really is the power of your story, like, and not just your story, Tom, but I think so many of us is like, just because that thought of it, oh, it's just me, or no one's had it like me, right? That shame that's tied to that. It's like, man, you don't know that just by you being willing to be open, honest, and real, and kind of do the work, you don't know the impact that might have for someone else who is feeling the exact same way, by the way, right?
Yes.
That they only have that issue.
Yeah.
And to hear it from someone else, it's like that might be the push they need to step into being honest and getting the help that's necessary too.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you brought that up, because by this point, at least here at Bayview, if you attend Bayview and you follow our messages, by this point you've probably already heard us say something along these lines, and that is that your story, every story has power. Your story has power because Jesus is the hero of your story.
Yeah.
And that makes it a great story. It doesn't matter the prequel. It doesn't matter how you got there. I know we all, like you said earlier, like sometimes you feel like, well, I don't have this crazy story. I wasn't delivered from something like this, or as your story is still an amazing story because Jesus is in it.
Yeah.
And you've got to let your story be told. And like what you were saying, I was thinking, Tom, as you were talking about how, you got to let that be used. The way we've said it here in the past is it's letting God use your scars, because the healing has happened, the forgiveness, and as the years go on, scars heal, and we can hide the scars out of shame, or we can let these scars be a testimony of God's healing. And when you let your scars be used, when you let your pain be used, you talked about that last year in a message. You were saying, don't waste the pain, right? Let God use these things. That's your story. Let your story be used for His glory. I did not mean to rhyme right there, but it does rhyme. Well, then you get to be part of watching what you said. There's something amazing when you're a part of the process of helping others. And through your story, you see God helping other people find freedom.
Yeah.
And there's just so much
and
there.
Don't get me wrong. I am not even close to being perfect. I sin every day. I have major issues that pop up. The ego comes up. The things come up, that from your past. And, I think a lot of people have had issues from not only being as an adult, but as a child. I see a lot of guys, it's kind of a pattern, that mentally, physically, sexually abused as a child and do not want to get help for that because that's their secret. And they're not going to let anybody know what that is because shame. Imagine that shame, and I just say, people, there's help. I've seen it multiple times with guys like that. And the only way is to get it out there, move forward.
Well, and it's their identity. That's their identity.
Absolutely.
Is I'm abused, I'm damaged, I'm unloved, I'm unlovable because of this.
Yes.
And they get sucked into all that. I think that's the biggest takeaway. If you're listening, we'd love for you just to know that, hey, don't try and do this alone. Get help. Go out there and tell somebody. Find help somewhere. If you're here locally, come. We're here for you. We'd love to help you out. Find a Celebrate Recovery group wherever you are. I mean, you can find those groups.
Well, and
find an AA group.
A caveat to that is, if you're not comfortable because you come to this church every Sunday, and people see you going in and talking to maybe a counselor or one of the pastors, go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Just go somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's another part of shame. I don't want anyone to see me getting help,
Yeah.
It's another weakness.
No, we actually have a catalog of trusted Christian counselors in our region here that do not attend our church.
Yeah.
Because I've had people say that, like, I want to go to a counselor, but they can't attend your church.
Yeah.
Well, that's a little tough because a lot attend our church. But I get it. It's fine. I don't care. Yeah, we'll help you find it.
Oh, here's another thing. I had to share this one. You think that going to a counselor, they're going to take your story and make a book out of it or something, or the things I say to these people, they're going to think I'm crazy.
Yep.
They don't care. You're in there for an hour, you spill your guts and you leave and you feel great.
Yeah.
They're not there for that.
Yeah.
They see 10 people a day
Yeah.
may have worse problems than you.
Yeah.
And for you to think that, they're going to really, that's so, that's that selfishness. I want to keep this. It's my identity. Oh man, it's just
The excuses and the reasons are many.
I was saying technically, like even just legally, they can't.
Yeah, they
No,
can.
they
So,
can't.
yeah.
You know, and why would they?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
They're there to help. Yep.
Your sin wasn't that impressive.
No.
Well, hey, Tom, thank you so much for being with us today, man. Thank you for coming back and just sharing what you had to share with us today. I think we said this last time, but you are welcome anytime. Like anytime you're in the area, we'd love to sit down and continue to have these conversations with you. If you're listening and you need help of some level, please don't hesitate to reach out to us here. You go to our website, bayviewchurch.net, and contact us through that. You can call us. If you don't live here, call somebody. Go somewhere, and don't do this alone, because you need others to help you, and then through that you're going to experience this freedom through Jesus Christ, the forgiveness, healing, and freedom that comes only through Him, and then you get to experience your true identity. And there's nothing like it, like it. So. If you haven't done so, click subscribe on the bottom of whatever platform you're listening to so you don't miss a single episode. We're here each week. Can't wait to be back with you next week. We got some exciting stories coming to you during this time as well. And until then, for today.
Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
Anytime, man.
Yeah.
Anytime. So this is Tom, Andrew, Chris. We are out of here, and we'll catch you next time around.